Good morning, everyone. This is the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force Behavioral Health Committee meeting here virtually on May 16th, 2023. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're gathered on the traditional and unceded territory of the Lummi, Nooksack, Samish, and Semiahmoo people who have cared for and tended this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We pay respect to elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. And I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We have a quorum this morning. I'm going to go ahead and run the meeting this morning. Mike Parker has to leave a little bit early for another meeting and different appointment. We have 6 items before us this morning. The first item is a presentation on teen court, and I'm really pleased to introduce Bonnie Schultz-Lawrenson, the teen court manager from Northwest Youth Services. Bonnie and I had a great meeting a few weeks ago to discuss teen court and upstream prevention interventions, and I was just really impressed by Bonnie and her ability to articulate what the teen court does. So I invited her today here for our behavioral health subcommittee to provide our members an overview of teen court. And Bonnie, you've got probably 15-20 minutes to present, and we'll have some time to take questions. It depends on how you want to do it. If you want to take them during the presentation or at the end, but we'll definitely carve out some time at the end. So the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. 15 to 20 minutes when I could talk about teen court all day. That's going to be hard, but I'll do my best. I'll do my best. Thank you for having me here. I've been really excited to come to this meeting and share what teen court is and what teen court's about. One of the things I need to tell you right off the bat is I can talk about this and try to paint a picture for you. But unless you are there at teen court, you will not fully appreciate and understand what these young people are capable of. So I'm going to do my best to explain it without having you all there. So thank you again. My name is Bonnie, and I am going to be Zoom effective here. I'm going to share my screen. So I put together a presentation. And please help me because it's been a while. So, oh, there's so many buttons. I don't remember how to do Zoom anymore. This is on the way. Okay. How do I move you guys over here? Okay. Present. There. Can you see? There. Okay. Can you see the full screen?
Yeah, you're in presentation mode.
Okay, thank God. We used to do this for teen court, and now it's been like what, a year, and I don't know Zoom anymore. Okay. Here we go. So this is teen court. This is our logo, which was just created by our young people. So what is teen court? Teen court is a restorative justice program. It is run entirely by high school students. It is incredible to witness how court is modeled after adult court, but it is run by high school students who do the judge, bailiff, clerk, jury. They fill all the roles. And it's hard to believe, like I stated in the beginning, but it is actually run by high school students. And we have 6 participating high school students or high schools, and they come to teen court and they literally choose to volunteer their time once a month for an evening, and they have preparation too that they have to do beforehand. It's really incredible. We serve high school students that are 13 to 18 years old, And these are real cases. So teen court is somebody who has been charged, who's 13 to 17. They've been charged with a crime and they go into diversion, which is already part of our system. And they get funneled into teen court if they meet certain requirements, which are basically like, will they show up? Do they admit, are they being willing to be accountable for the crime that they committed? And we call them respondents because they're responding to the charges. We used to call them offenders, but we're changing those things because those are labels, and we know that labels can be really helpful or they can be really hurtful, and it does make a difference. Once they're in court, they receive consequences by a jury of their peers. So a respondent will have advocates. We don't have lawyers. We have high school students who make presentations. They look at their police report for the young person who's been charged, and they present the facts of the case and they make recommendations based on a list that we have. And it's up to the jury, and that's my point number one there. It's up to the jury to focus on what's going to help the respondent go back into the community, help the person who's been impacted, help the community that's been impacted, and help the person, the respondent who's done this. And we do not focus on punishment. We are restorative justice based. We are not looking to assign 200 hours of garbage picking up duty. That doesn't make any sense. We want to be able to help the respondents with things like if they've been charged with an assault, so they're there because they assaulted someone. What about if the jury looks at and hears all the different things and they say, hey, a conflict and communications class, that might be a good fit for this young person. Maybe some community service to give back. There's some other things that we can assign to. One of the things I get really excited about is jury duty, which means that the person, the respondent, gets assigned the opportunity to be a jury member. And so now they get to see what it's like on the other side. They get to see what's it like to decide consequences for somebody. And I want to say that the high school students who volunteer in this program, they are diverse. They are not all A+ students who do everything perfectly. We have young people on our jury who may have committed a crime themselves and didn't get caught. Maybe they're doing jury duty and they were respondent before. We have kids who are just passing. One of the things, and Dan, thank you for saying this, is teen court is a prevention program. And it is not just for the respondent. We have about 100+ high school volunteers who have this program as a community for themselves. This is a pro-social place where they can learn about restorative justice, they can learn about the court system, they can learn about how to be responsible people and make decisions because we trust these young people to make decisions. They have a lot of responsibility in teen court and they do really, really, really well. Based on this model of teen court, we have, this is so exciting. I'm bragging, but we have 100% completion rate, which means a young person was assigned, a respondent was assigned all these different things, and they have to complete them. They have to. If they don't complete them, their case gets closed. It goes back to the prosecuting attorney. I can't help them. Teen court is an opportunity, and they have to see it that way. I mean, sometimes they're not really all that grateful. We all know that. But we can get them in there. They can help. We can help them see what this is about in a safe space. And 100% completion rate last year. Over the last 5 years, we've had an average of 95% success rate. So we have these are young people who are following through. And I think it's because they have a jury of their peers, and there's nobody else who can understand better what young people are going through than young people. So it's incredible. It's really incredible. Okay, I'm gonna switch this slide. Okay, I don't know how to move this. I don't know if it's in your way. Okay, I'm gonna just go. Teen Court follows Northwest Youth Services because that's what I fall under. I partner with the Whatcom County Courthouse and the Juvenile Court, but I actually work for Northwest Youth Services. So in Teen Court, we follow Northwest Youth Services mission and values. We strive to be anti-racist. You can see the values there about community, justice, and liberation. Absolutely humanity. We train our jury members to understand that a respondent is a human being who's made a mistake, like we all have. We all do it. And how can we see their gifts? How can we see their strengths? And what can we do to lift them up and help them to make better decisions? And again, we have that really high success rate. So what we are doing works. And then there's that accountability piece. And what's really cool, and I want to stress this again, is it's not only the respondent who's being accountable, but it is also, again, all those volunteers who are coming and they are being accountable because they're showing up and they're creating presentations and they're saying, yeah, I believe that this person can do better. I believe that this person made a mistake, and they are showing up. And some of this takes time out of their day to prepare. It can take a lot. So that's what we follow, and we do our best. And I'll share a case with you, a story about somebody that I think when I shared with Dan, I took like 30 minutes to share, but I won't do that to you here. We all need faces so we can understand who we're looking at. Again, that humanity piece. So I am so happy to share that these are young people who are on the student advisory board. So Teen Court has a leadership team. And again, these are not all A+ students. These are not perfect students. These are students who are looking, yes, sometimes to go onto a college resume, but also to do something positive within their community, to give back, to be part of something. So these are our leadership team. On the left, this was taken just after COVID, and it was our first in-person jury or case that we had in June, and they're so adorable. And then the middle picture shows more opportunities that we have in Teen Court, and that is, I am the vice president for the Washington State Association of Youth Courts. So Whatcom County and the funding that we do is something very unique and different because we do diversion cases, real cases. We are not just a traffic court. You've got traffic courts for young people, run by young people in Washington State. That's cool, but it is not what we do. We should be really proud, and I'm really proud of what Whatcom County does. We do it differently. We're saying, yes, young people are capable. Yes, they can take on these types of cases. And so this is us at the University of Seattle Law School, and we've just attended a conference. They're hyped. They've learned about restorative justice. They've learned about how to ask questions. They've met other people from other courts. This is prevention work. Again, it's not just about the respondent. This is actually helping our community even on a larger scale. If we're talking prevention, we are doing it right here. At the very right there, this is in the fall, we have a training for Teen Court where we've got like 80 people who come into the Whatcom County Courthouse, because that's where it's done. We're doing this officially here at the Whatcom County Courthouse, 3rd floor. We've had Judge Olson, Commissioner Richardson, Judge Jones. They're volunteers. They let us use their courtrooms. It's incredible. This is taxpayer money. They're helping us do this. So it's a really good thing. And this is a fall training where we talk about all sorts of things to set us up for the year. But yeah, those are faces. This is real impact. By the numbers, because I know people love to see numbers. We have respondents served per year. On average, we have 16 to 28. COVID really impacted our numbers, as it did, of course, for everybody. So those numbers went down a little bit. This year, we have 22 respondents that we've been serving. We have, like I said, over 100 volunteers. That's a huge amount. We have the high school, 6 high schools. So that's the teacher advisors from there too. We've got adults, other adults who come and volunteer, who learn about us. 92%. So this is from a study that was done, and it's an older study, and I can't find a newer one. But what it showed is that the number of teen court respondents who do not reoffend, so these are respondents that have gone through the program, is 92%. That's really high. We're saying that respondents who come through teen court overwhelmingly do not reoffend. Again, that means what we're doing is working. We have outcomes that we have to meet. For the City of Bellingham funding, because it's City of Bellingham who funds us and Whatcom County who funds us. And we're trying to get some of the cities to fund us too, because we see respondents from all over Whatcom County, which is wonderful. We have to serve number of youth of 20, 80%. We're always above 80%. And we need to serve volunteers in the 75 number. We always beat that. So the service strengths for teen court, like I said, we're restorative justice focused. We have civic learning opportunities. The consequences that youth can give come from a sheet. They can't just make up consequences. They've got theft reflections, jury duty, like I said, employment and education. So what I love about this is, say a respondent steals something, they come into teen court for that. Well, let's have them learn about the value of money. Instead of stealing something, maybe we can help them get them a job, learn skills to get a job, so that they can understand the impacts of stealing and the value of money. Also at that point too, we're learning about, you know, why did they steal? We want to find out more about what's going on at home. We do a lot of that work too, because I case manage those young people, and yeah, it's not always as simple as something as stealing. We know that there are things below that, and we want to get to those things too. Like I said, it's youth led. We really rely on student input for teen court, which is very different, kind of like the committee here. We're really relying on the students to be able to make decisions and make an impact. One of the things that we've assigned for community service before was animals as natural therapy. I'm not sure if you folks know much about that, but they work with young people in a therapeutic way, and we can connect them. So respondents can come through us and we can connect them that way. Again, prevention work. Get to those deeper issues. Areas of growth. I had some technological issues, go figure. So this one I had to screenshot from another presentation that I did. So the exciting news is we were going to incorporate victim impact statements last year. Well, we did. That's with the Student Advisory Board. We call them impact statements, not victim impact statements, because everyone likes to be called different things, not always a victim. And so we've incorporated those into court so that the respondent can actually hear about the impact that they've made on somebody else, and that's huge. Things that we'd love to see, of course, is more trainings, more work with tribal connections, incorporating restorative justice circles as an alternative. That would be really great. We're working in the court system which is a colonial system and isn't always the best fit for everybody. So it'd be really great to offer different ways of restorative justice. One thing I'm hoping that I can share with you folks, because you are a committee, which to me means that you have an impact too. I'm really hoping that we can come together and we can talk about, instead of just seeing young people who have been charged, so they've already got the criminal record, although it can be sealed once they're 18. But what if, as part of our prevention work, instead of getting these young folks when they've been charged with something, what if we caught them before that? What if in the school systems, whether it's an assault at school and they need some extra support, what if it's at a store and they committed theft, and instead of charging them, we said, hey, there's this program, Teen Court, and instead of charging you right away, why don't you come through this restorative justice service and let's help you out and let's help the community? Because I think we can help a lot more people. We can jump in and be supportive of a lot more people even before they are charged with a crime. So there's a lot of work there. I'm going to try and keep this really short. And I hope you can hear how excited I am about this. But I call this Making the Connection because I want to tell you about a respondent. And I know we all love stories, and I'm really hyped about this one. So some of the cases we see, like I said, are assault, some are theft. One of the cases we saw recently was harassment, threat to kill. That sounds really serious, and it was serious. And this young person made a threat to a school. And what they threatened to cause a massacre at the school through a text. And of course, the police got involved, the school was involved, all these things. Well, and you know, it's because the brain development, and I really don't think that that young person could make the connection between what they were doing and the actual impact of what was going to happen. And why I want to share about this story is because it's personal for me. So this young person, I got to do an intake with their family. I meet with the young person and the family before it even goes into the teen court program. And one of the things that I noticed when I read the police report was that this young person goes to the same school as my husband. And I know that we all feel this. So every day my husband goes to school and he teaches. And every day I worry because we live in this society that's scary. And I thought, man, should I take this case? Am I the right person? Because I really have this personal connection. But I thought, yes, I want to do it because this is my job. I'm in service of others. So I met with the young person and I decided to share that what I just shared with you about how every day I'm scared, and I'm sure his parents are worried for him. And I was a bit emotional, and I could see the impact on this young person. And it was like I saw a light bulb go off. He got emotional. He understood. He finally understood, and I could see it. What kind of impact his actions have and had. And I really do not believe that without teen court, that young person would have understood what they had actually done without the ability to have that interaction. And that youth was willing to be held accountable. And they went through the teen court process. They were there with all their peers. And they received consequences. They also made a statement about what had happened and that they were sorry. So they had the ability to apologize to their peers as well and to people in the courtroom, which is huge. That's a gift. And he was assigned community service he was assigned the conflict and communication class. He was assigned something called community links, which we do in Whatcom County, which is a resource sharing network. And what it is that the youth and the parent has to go together and they learn about each other and they learn about resources in a really engaging way. Super cool. So he'd had that and jury duty. And boy, this kid, he's been on it. He's been doing so well. I've been so proud of him. I text him, I say how well he's doing. And there's a couple highlights about this. Again, this is the respondent and the impact of teen court. And I gave him the option. He was doing so well. I said, hey, if you don't want to show up, he was given 2 nights of jury duty. I said, hey, if you don't want to show up for jury duty this last time, it's okay. You've been doing so well. I know you're doing school. I know you're really committed. You don't have to, it's your choice. Well, he made the choice. He came and he fulfilled that last obligation of jury duty that I had given him the choice for. The other piece is I saw him and I've been praising him so much. And I said, hey, he was sitting in the audience for the courtroom. And I said, hey, I looked at the judge and I said, that could be you. You could be judge one day. You could be the advocate. You could do this. And again, a light bulb went off and you could see, you know how teenagers do that like half smile, like they don't want you to know that they're smiling, but you know that they're smiling. He did that and it was like no one had said that to him before. And I think people did, but it hit differently. And you could tell he was like, me? I could be that? Yes. And this is what teen court does. This is what we can do. We create a community of people who see beyond somebody's mistake in a supportive space. This is what teen court do, and it could do again in different ways in our community. We can stop punishing people for mistakes and look beyond what's happening and help them and bring them into a supportive community, which is what teen court is. So I'm still obsessed with that student. I want them to join teen court as a volunteer next year, and I'm not going to give up. So, and then I just want you to know, as I said about the prevention piece for young people, the volunteers who do this. Can you see the bottom part? Because I don't know how to move this. Oh, look, I did it. Never mind. Oh, I hope that hasn't been there the whole time because I don't know how to change it. The prevention piece for the volunteers. This is what they said. So I did a survey because our last teen court, we only go October to May or June. And May is the one we stopped at this year. Just because the youth get so squirrely now, the volunteers, they're like checked out from school, so it's harder. But my favorite comment that they made, and do not underestimate this. I would really stress, please don't underestimate this. They said, this is my best after school community. That has so much weight. It gives me goosebumps. They're saying that this is a place that they want to be, that they see value, that they feel that they are valued. This is prevention work, and we could do more. We could do more. And I think we have an obligation in Whatcom County to expand this, to make this something bigger, because it can be bigger and we can actually help people. And I know for a fact that one of my volunteers, this program saved their lives because they've just been struggling mental health ways. And I know that it did. So my hope in sharing all this with you, and I'm happy to answer questions, and I don't even know what time it is, so thanks for bearing with me. My hope is that we can do more, and that with your help, looking at incarceration rates, looking and listening to what I've shared with you, internalizing those pieces, looking at those faces, hearing the story of that one respondent, that we make this bigger and we help with funding to make this program bigger too. I get so emotional about that. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. And now I can see you because I didn't know how to see you before. I really did not take long for me to forget about Zoom. So that's teen court. That's my dog. And do you have any questions? Anything you want to know or learn? Yes.
Hi, Bonnie. Thanks for the good presentation. My name's Peter Fraser, and I do have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Can you, you were talking about the power of the statement you made to the student who had you were working with in your story. And you also mentioned that you're now bringing online victim impact statements. I'm wondering, is your program regularly bringing in victims of crimes to face explain how the crime affected them?
Yes, so that is something that started that's really new. And I do believe that it's making an impact. Since we just started it, we're figuring it out. So right now, the way that we do impact statements is we have somebody write in a statement because I want to veto it first, because sometimes it can do more harm than good. So I want to be able to look at it and review it. In the future, like we had a driving without a license case. Yes, in the future, Peter, I would really like to have a police officer or an insurance person or somebody come in, even just to speak on behalf of like what that would look like. Yeah, I'd like to do that. We can do better with that, but we're just learning. We just started.
Yeah, I mean, in your own telling of that story, the power was that face-to-face meeting, and you as a concerned victim changed, the light bulb went on. I've seen it happen, and it just seems like you're going to lose a lot of power if you don't make use of that. The other thing is, I don't know really enough about the juvenile system. Is this, what portion of the juvenile system are you are going through teen court, and what are you what would happen otherwise?
So great question. Thank you. So young people, depending on the type of crime, and I'm not an expert in law, so please, I'm not part of that juvenile court system either. So we could always ask Darcy Johnson, who refers folks to me, to help out. But basically, unless it's a very serious offense, a respondent goes through diversion, and they can either meet with, say, Darcy, who works at juvenile court, she's a probation officer, and they can either meet there, and Darcy gives consequences, and that's the end of it. And she monitors them, and she's amazing. She's fantastic. But that's the end of it. That's the learning. Or they come through teen court, and there's that extra accountability piece, and there's that peer base. So that's how I get them.
Committee members, other questions? Mike Hilly.
Yeah, thanks. Good morning. Mike Hilly, I'm the Emergency Medical Services Manager, and thanks so much, Bonnie. Just curious, does this include like low-level drug offenses or minor in possession, minor consuming type of things, where that could be referred to court as well? And I'm just wondering if there's a associated sort of awareness, or not rehab per se, but a track that provides that awareness, because it seems like, you know, a youth has that first incident, right, gets busted, but maybe they're not deep into it yet. That seems like they'd be a great engagement point to,
Yes, I agree. It used to be, Mike, that we saw only first-time diversion cases. Now we see second-time diversion cases. So it might be that they were busted for something before, and then they come to us. My response to that is, we used to see a lot more possession charges, substance use. We don't as much now. That I believe is connected to the change of law, the changes in the law. And so we don't see those. And that's also where I think there's an opportunity for us, right? What if we said, instead of charging them, we don't have to charge kids. We don't have to do that. we can say, hey, this is what I see, this is what I'm witnessing, and what can we do earlier than that? Because that would be wonderful.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Love
Gary
questions.
Maury.
Hi, Bonnie. Thanks. Again, so much. I really appreciate your energy, around this and so forth.
Thank you.
Something that you just, it just really struck me as you were talking about a number of the components and the approaches. I
Yeah.
don't know how familiar you are with therapeutic community model. It's been around forever. There is an excellent author in connection to it, and it's been around. Like I said, he's been around for quite some length of time. His name is George DeLeon. It's a 2-word last name, D-E and then L-E-O-N. But there's quite a bit of research around just sort of the behavioral components of that, the behavior modification components of that, social learning theory, and just, several components of, honestly, at least from my opinion, why this works. And why it works as well as it is, and much of it is developed into an evidence-based practice, and and so forth. So just wanted to make reference to that because I had the opportunity to work in therapeutic communities. The power of groups, the power of the youth themselves, and so it was incredibly powerful. I mean, individuals that were just outright didn't want to do it, or were doing it just to avoid, some other consequence. And we're like, okay, fine, I'll go in and fake it, and etc. And we didn't care. We didn't care what brought them in, because once the individual is involved in that social power, they were dramatically impacted by it. And I happen to work in this setting in prisons. And so incredibly powerful, very tough people with a lot of trauma, obviously. And so anyway, just wanted to mention that. Really appreciated your input.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. I wrote it down, and thank you. Thank you.
Mike Parker.
Yeah, thanks, Bonnie. Thanks so much for your presentation. It's nice to get a kernel of hope. A lot of times we deal with hard things in this committee, but you brought a lot of enthusiasm, and I would argue a little bit of hope. So thank you for that. I did have a question, and you guessed us right. We love data. This group really loves data. We get frustrated. We don't often get it, but I really appreciated your data and showing the efficacy of the system. It did make me think, how long does it last? And how long do you track? And are you able to track like respondents that have gone through teen court successfully onto adulthood? Do you have any sense of that, either your program or other programs? How much are we betting the long-term arc? I guess if you could weigh in on that, that'd be super.
Yeah, thank you. I understand the data piece. It is not my strength. Just gonna tell you, numbers is not my strength, but I get it. And what I can say is that for the piece of long-term, I would love to have that data too, but we don't. And I've asked about it because I think it would be really helpful, and folks like you want to know. We all want to know. There's something, what I was told, and maybe someone here has more power than I do in the system, is that because of the switchover and the confidentiality piece of 17 and below as minors and then into adulthood, they're not tracking it. I don't know if someone else here has sway of some kind. I think it would be really helpful. So I don't have those numbers, but I wish that I did. And you had another question, Mike. I don't think I answered it.
No, that was pretty much it. Just, are you able to know beyond, right, their involvement or beyond their time as a teen? So no, you hit it. I guess my other one was, you mentioned small cities. So are you not everywhere geographically? Are there places in Whatcom County, for example, where teens can avail of teen court? You mentioned that to some degree. So I just wanted to inquire about that.
Yeah, thank you. So we can serve, the respondents can be anywhere in Whatcom County. They can come from anywhere. It's the high schools that choose to participate. We have Squalicum, Seaholm, Ferndale, Linden, Blaine. I'm missing one. Bellingham, but I didn't say that one. We have those 6 schools. And then it's the other schools that maybe don't provide volunteers, or they're maybe like Nooksack. So far, it's not, sometimes they're not willing to participate. But that's how. Otherwise, we see respondents from like Linden, we get quite a few of respondents from Linden, but not yet. They don't fund us, but I'm working on that because we really need more funding to make this work more broadly and do better work. We see folks from all over the county. There isn't a spot we don't see people in that way. And then for your other question, Mike, I just want to say teen court has been around for 25 years. So it's not something that's just new. It's been around for a long time doing this thing. And it took a while to get started because people don't believe in it unless they see it. We started with that. And so I also just want to stress, we don't want this to get lost in Whatcom County because it's really special and we stand out in Washington State and actually in the nation.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Peter Fraser.
Bonnie, what's your budget and where's it coming from?
Okay, okay. So our budget, and I had to write this down again because numbers. So the city of Bellingham gives us about $21,000, and Whatcom County gives us about 25,000. They do that. That covers my salary. I work part-time. I work 3 days a week. This covers 20 hours per week. And that's really not a lot. And then it helps to fund things like helping young people go to ANSA's natural therapy. It helps to, we did also Whatcom Humane Society training. It helps to offset different costs if we're asking people to do things. It also helps with retention for those volunteers. It helps pays for pizza parties and that kinds of stuff to get, because kids are not coming unless they're fed. We all know that. Adults are like that too. So there's that. So it's actually a really small budget for the amount of work that we do.
Mike Smith.
Hi, Bonnie. I want to thank you for your presentation. The question I had was about gang-involved youth. Do you see a large number of gang-involved youth, and what's the number, maybe you have a number, maybe you don't, of the minorities that actually come through the teen court?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. So we have an option for them to check off in the intake form about gang involvement. I don't have gang involved youth. I don't know if that's on purpose. I'm not sure, but I don't typically have gang involved youth. Maybe sometimes they don't check it off. I'm not sure. And then diversity wise, minority wise, we've got that has increased as well. So as we all know, Whatcom County the last 25 years has been pretty white. And so what's been changing both in terms of volunteers in teen court, which is very important because representation matters, is that we are seeing more minority groups. So one of the things I didn't get to say, because it's so hard because I can't say all the things, even though I want to say all the things, is that we just had a malicious mischief charge, and it was graffiti with the word "I hate," and it was spray painted "I hate N-word" on the high school, the wall of the high school. And this was, we've never had something like this before in teen court, and we were able to do in court a talk about the history of the N-word, why we don't say it. What was very interesting about that, and the reason why I'm sharing it, Mike, is because the two young people who did this were Hispanic identifying. And so that also added a layer to this case that we were able to talk about, and we were able to have this learning opportunity with a whole bunch of different people. It was very, this is what we do. Like, this is just, it's so cool that we could have this conversation and share this knowledge and have those two young people understand a little bit more about where this is coming from. It's just, anyway. So I kind of answered your question. I just get so excited.
You did, and I thank you very much for your information.
Committee members, other questions for Bonnie? Okay, seeing none, thanks Bonnie for the presentation. I just think, we look at the numbers here, you brought up your budget. If you're about $43,000 to $45,000 per year, and you're impacting, I think you said 22 people that are going through the teen court system, plus all the volunteers that they can witness all
100
that.
plus, yep.
So consider the cost of incarcerating a person for a year, and what the comparison is with the cost of this program. I think the value here is pretty apparent to me. So that's why I wanted to bring, one of the reasons I wanted to bring Bonnie here, invited her today, was that we talk about these upstream interventions on a pretty regular basis in this committee. And this is another really good example that directly impacts the work that we do, because we are talking about actual criminal charges here that are addressed through a restorative and transformative process. So thank you, Bonnie. We really appreciate the presentation today. Anything else, any parting wisdom that you want to give to us?
Besides, please help us fund this program, is also just thank you for listening. I know I get really excited. I feel like I miss so much information, because not just that this is my job, but I really believe in this. And I tell the kids that too when I meet with them, when I'm sitting across from a respondent. I say, I wouldn't do this job if I didn't believe in it. So this is something that works. I know we can do more, and thank you so much. And I will share my contact information. And if anybody wants me to come and share what I do with any of the other committees or things you're involved in, I'm really happy to do that too. So thank you. And thank you for having me, Dan. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Bonnie. Thanks for coming today.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, we'll see you. Committee, in my excitement on getting Bonnie started here this morning, I failed to introduce a new member of the committee who's seated across the table from me here at in the Whatcom County courthouse. And so I wanted to introduce Peter Frazier and give him a moment to introduce himself. But I also wanted to provide you all with an opportunity to introduce yourselves and the role that you play on the committee. But I'll go ahead and start with Peter.
Thanks, Dan. I know most of you on this call, Mike and Mike, I guess, hello for the first time. I am a lifelong Whatcom County resident. My career was for 25 years in usability, customer research, user experience work, worked at for Fortune 500 companies and nonprofits to do the research to understand processes and products and how people use them, and then use that research to redesign those processes and products to make them more successful for the end user. So that's a perspective that I bring to my work in the community. You may know, I started the Heliotrope Hotel and the Hotel Leo. I have been on the Stakeholder Advisory Committee for the last, in our work in the previous year. I am following and promoting work on the new jail as part of a constellation of behavioral health, criminal justice facilities and programs. I am dedicated for whatever length of time it takes to see the roadmap that was set forth in the Stakeholder Advisory Committee needs assessment work product. I want to see that enacted here in Whatcom County, and will remain involved. And it's my pleasure to join you in this committee.
Excellent. Thanks, Peter. I'm just going to go ahead and call on people as I see them on the screen so we can move forward here. Perry Maury.
Good morning. Hi, Peter. We've gotten to parlay a little bit before, just have some conversations around related items. I am part of the response systems division within the health department, newly renamed as the Health and Community Services. And just oriented towards my background, has been clinical, and so I am involved in a number of contracts related to behavioral health services, that sort of thing. And so, yeah, that's who I am. Welcome.
Thank you, Perry.
Mike Hilly.
Yeah, good morning. Good to meet you. Mike Hilly, I'm the emergency medical services manager for the county, and been up here about 5 years, and with this group that a time as well, and retired out of, like I said, after 30 years of being a medic. And my connection here is, mostly to figure out how to better divert our patients out of the EMS system for most, mental health and SUD, et cetera. And just working towards sort of this integrated enterprise, if you will, as we all chip in to do this work. So good to meet you and welcome.
Yeah. Doug Chadwick.
Hey, good morning. Good to see you again, Peter. Doug Chadwick, Undersheriff here, and obviously working through the intersection between behavioral health and law enforcement.
Thanks, Doug. Mike Smith.
Thank you.
How you doing, my friend? My name is Mike Smith. I'm a mental health professional with Lake Wacom. I've developed programs throughout the I-5 corridor from Pierce County, and currently redeveloping a new crisis program stabilization with Lake Wacom Center. I'm here to assist the county the best way I can. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Stephen Gockley.
Hi, Peter. Good to see you again. Co-chair of the Incarceration Task Force, your fellow colleague on the Stakeholder Advisory Committee. Appreciate your involvement and glad you're formalizing that in one way by joining this committee. This is an important nexus for some of the issues that you and I have been working on together for a while.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Donnell Tanksley.
Hello, Peter. I'm Donnell Tanksley. Most people call me Tank, and I'm the chief of police with the city of Blaine. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you.
Brian Estes.
Hello, Peter. I know we've talked in the past about various issues related to downtown. I'm here in my capacity as co-president of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the Whatcom County chapter, and I'm glad you're joining us.
Thank you, Brian.
Courtney Taylor.
Hi, Peter. We haven't met before, but I'm a behavioral health specialist with the Whatcom County Public Defender's Office. Welcome.
Thank you, Courtney.
Who did I miss? I can see 9 people or 9 boxes on the screen. Anybody I missed?
I think we got them all.
Okay.
As far as I can tell.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, thanks everybody for taking the time to do that piece. Let's move on to our next item here. This is the 2023 draft annual report, and this is in your packet, pages 3 through 8. Any questions on the draft annual report? Okay. So we are all good to go on this one here. Brian Estes, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a number of comments. Let's see here. Some of which are just kind of editorial. I won't discuss those today, but here's some of the comments on page 3 at the top. I just think we need to call out the importance of continuing to increase Medicaid reimbursement rates. We've talked about that. And I think we need to mention that specifically and illustrate the impact it has in getting those people treated. I'm not quite sure. I'd be willing to revise this and track changes, but if people are okay with these comments, but what's the process for going forward on this?
Jill Nixon.
Hi, Brian. I'm happy to connect with you outside of the meeting and go over some changes if you like. And then we can definitely incorporate your changes, and those will be included in the final draft that'll go to the full task force at its meeting in June.
Okay, can we just run it through the chairs to see if they agree rather than the whole committee?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, well, let me just kind of stick to some higher level comments to just see if the committee's okay with this. One thing I didn't see in this paragraph, it starts on the bottom of page 2. I really, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we have not had a presentation from the BSNS ASO. And Peter, are you familiar with that? Anyway.
I sure am. Yes.
Yeah, on their facilities analysis from last year. Have we, Dan or Mike?
Mike's off the call. He had to go to a different appointment. I don't recall. Jill Nixon, do you recall? I don't think so.
No, we haven't had that presentation.
I would recommend we add that to something we're going to look at in the following year, because the lack of a pediatric inpatient facility to me should be a very high priority. And well, I know this isn't the purview of this group, but it'd be interesting just to have that analysis done anyway. And for those people that are Barry and others that are on that, county behavioral health advisory, that's probably an issue for them, but I think we should just note it here anyway. Let's see here. I wanted to, this is a question probably for Doug Chadwick. In this update behavioral health crisis response program related to the sheriff's office use of behavioral health funding. I recall I attended that hearing some time ago on the budget, and Kathy Kirschner mentioned that they could fund 2 deputies, maybe the 2 behavioral health deputies from the behavioral health fund itself. Did that occur, Doug?
No, I don't believe that occurred, but we do currently have 2 behavioral health deputies. We have FTEs, and then we have them designated. So currently one is full and one is out. It's vacant, but we've put out a solicitation to fill that position. And then we've also got 2 behavioral health specialists that are in the process of working within our program and our patrol deputies.
Do you know, Doug, just approximately how much money the sheriff's office gets from the behavioral health fund?
I don't have that readily available, but I can get that for you.
I'm just curious. I don't necessarily think we need to put it in here, but it might, although in some respects, I think that's a good idea. I have a further comment later about more transparency on use of the behavioral health fund.
I know they do provide some funding for our crisis negotiations team.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think that would be good to add that figure in here for the 23-24. If anybody has any comments or doesn't think this is appropriate, let me know. We should discuss it, but this is just kind of where I'm coming from on this. I do think we need to mention in the following paragraph, the second to the last on page 3, 988. There's no mention here of this, and it is improving. There's going to be more education by the state on this system. I think it's very important that, and I think we should state here that people should call 988 when they're in a mental health crisis, because one of the benefits is if they're a veteran, if they speak Spanish, if they're LGBTQ, or if they're indigenous, they have an option to be connected to a caseworker on the phone specifically trained to deal with those 4 groups. And I think wherever we can publicize that in public documents, we should do that. So I would suggest we add that. And then finally, on page 4 under improved data availability, I would like to see us in the next year provide transparency on the use of the behavioral health fund. Who's receiving it annually and what's the reserve? Are there any issues with adding that to the report?
That's fine.
Perry, are you okay with that?
I am. There's a couple of things that are going on. There is a process of collection of expenditures from the Behavioral Health Program Fund for 2022 that is just now being completed after books are closed and et cetera. I'm not a business office person, but that is information that I'm waiting for. There is also within the statute a requirement for an annual Behavioral Health Program Fund report that is also, it's available obviously to the community and does include the information that you're talking about, although it does not go into the details of who the list of I don't even know how many contracts and services that are actually being provided out of the behavioral health fund, because it goes across well beyond just behavioral health providers. For example, some of the funds are spent on prevention and intervention work, etc. So got no problem with it, but in terms of information being available for Jill Nixon to wrap up this report, I'm not in control of that the revenue, the expenditure information, although I'm waiting for it at this point in time to complete the 2022 information. So yeah.
Well, what I'm suggesting, Perry, is that we add this for next year as a priority. And I would like to see, and you've provided this to me in capacity with NAMI, a spreadsheet of all those that receive funds from the Behavioral Health Fund, but there was no funding attached to it. I think it'd be important to do that annually, and also like, okay, we're in 2023, who's receiving funds for this year, how much, and how much is in the reserve. I'm personally, I think voters, residents need access to that information. I recognize there has been some political, we say, concern about the reserve, but I just truly believe that should be transparent.
Yeah, certainly no argument for you there. Those are not decisions that I make, but I can certainly pass along that information. And again, just wanted to be able to provide you with when you were talking about the report, getting the data to Jill and et cetera.
Well, the report, I did read it. It's very summary. It's not it lacks some of the detail that I think would be, in my view, just me speaking, appropriate to be available to the public. So
Brian, could I just jump in here for a second?
Sure.
Just institutional memory. Nothing you've said or none of the points you've made are anything I disagree with, and I think they're good ideas. What we're talking about here is an annual report that sort of has a history within the task force, and really what we're trying to do is to summarize activities that the committee has done in the past year and to flag issues that the committee has, after some deliberation, identified as sort of work focuses for the coming year. I think what you're doing is proposing some ideas for what some of those future focuses might be, but they're not things that we've really discussed in any depth, vetted, and sort of collectively decided should be the focuses. I don't mind putting a couple of those in there, but I think your analytical insights are extremely valuable, and I would like to take those up as we shape a 2023 agenda. You and Dan and Mike, for instance, I would encourage you to bring some of those topics, especially the transparency and the funding that underlies some of the services onto the agenda for future meetings. And I don't even mind saying that we want to make that a focus. Next year's annual report, we'll be able to vote on that, or we'll even be able to make recommendations to the task force and the council during the year coming out of those conversations. I don't want to go too far with altering the report with things that we haven't really, as a group, worked through in some
Well,
detail.
Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that context, and I will just say several of things that we've brought up, I believe we have discussed and acknowledge as important topics. So Mike and Michael, well, like I said here, but Dan, are you okay? I can do this fairly quickly, even like definitely like by the end of the week or sooner. And then I'll just send a copy to you, Dan and Mike, and maybe we can just jump on a call and just make, most of these actually are agenda items that we should take up in the future. But I do think we shouldn't downplay the opportunity to educate the public on a few issues with this, like for example, 988.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, Brian. Why don't you go ahead and just loop in Jill Nixon, myself, and Mike Parker on these points, and then we can discuss that later. Jill,
Yeah, okay, that's all I had.
And
Okay,
I'll just add, Brian, that the Medicaid reimbursement rate problem, and the we had a presentation on 988. So all of those seem to be appropriate topics to include in the report.
Thanks, Stephen. Jill Nixon, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little context for Brian and everyone else also, because the task force is so busy and deep into working on the Justice Project, that the steering committee made a conscious decision to keep this year's annual report fairly surface level and not involved. So yeah, Brian, you're right. A lot of the nuance isn't there. A lot of the details aren't there, just simply because it's been a workload issue, quite frankly, because of the Justice Project.
Thanks, Jill. Brian, did you have another question? Your hand's still up.
No, I'm trying to lower my hand here.
Okay, great. Peter Frazier, then Mike Hilly, then Tank. Go ahead.
Since I'm so new, excuse me for not knowing this, but how is this annual report used? Is there a presentation given to the county council? If somebody could just give me a little bit of context, that would be great. And I note that this is an annual report for 2023, and we're in May, so I'm just curious about the timing as well.
Jill Nixon.
The ordinance that created the task force requires 2 reports a year. One, the main report, which we call the annual report, is due June 30th of every single year. It's usually a more in-depth report. And then the task force also does a real brief year-end report that's kind of a roundup of things that have been discussed and plans for the following calendar year. That's usually done in December.
Are there presentations associated with it for the public or the council?
Yeah, the reports are required to be submitted in writing, but every year the task force chairs have presented or done a presentation on the report to the county council during county council meeting day.
Thank you.
Mike Hilly.
Yeah, thanks, Councilmember Hamel. I just wondering, I saw the mention of the fentanyl opioid, data trending that you showed in the report. I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity in that little section to express the, I'll be dramatic, the dire need for this alternate diversion center. Now that we have these funds coming from the state, it seems like the output of all the meetings that we've had from the last year would lend to an urgency on standing that up, given that 30+% of the people that we engage EMS in the field refuse treatment and they go away. We know there's another certain amount of people that have ODs that we don't even get word of. And then there's a certain amount of people that get sent to the hospital to be waiting in the waiting room that eventually leave. So I don't know what those amounts are from the hospital perspective, but it's a high amount. And if we can change a narrative, if there's a better place to go other than the ED, I think that'll be a great output or comment from all the meetings from the last year. Just somehow maybe putting a sense of urgency in getting this facility up now that the funds are headed this way.
Mike Hilly, are you talking about the proposed 23-hour facility for behavioral health?
Yeah, that's correct, Dan. And we're a little bit stuck at the moment. Now, I know the Ann Deacon Center will get there, but I think over the last year and a half, we've learned about some of the many barriers and complications to that. So it's just not as easy as walking in that front door and turning somebody over. There's just so much more to it. But I think given that 24-hour period, if somebody says, yeah, I'll go to this other facility, I don't want to go to the ED, I'm willing to stay here for, you know, the 24 hours, the 23 hours and 59 minutes until somebody can get me a social worker contact, either set me up for outpatient or inpatient treatment, or maybe this is where somebody can be put on MAT through one of the local services. So I just, we're feeling a certain anxiety lately about, you know, diverting, especially these overdoses, to some better place.
Okay. Take, I see it, but I want to close the loop on this part of the conversation real quick here, or at least maybe introduce some other things for the committee to think about. Committee, note that both the House and the Senate are in special session today regarding the Blake decision, and the proposed deal is possession will be a gross misdemeanor, but with sentence limitations for the first two offenses. There are no mandatory minimums. Local governments are preempted from establishing stricter rules, including paraphernalia, however they can regulate harm reduction efforts like needle exchanges. Pretrial diversion to treatment is strongly encouraged, but prosecutors must consent. Mandatory plan to vacate these sentences if defendant completes the treatment, and then a proposed 63 million more for recovery housing, law enforcement assisted diversion, etc., and then robust data collection. So what I'm saying is that in addition to the 23-hour facility, this is a moving target, and I want the committee to understand that, and to chime in here on how we then talk about that on packet page 3 under monitor local fentanyl and xylazine use trends. I just got a report from our police chief and our Wacom dispatch that indicated that there is a 69% increase in DOAs year to date from fentanyl and xylazine overdoses. So this is not a static issue, and it keeps changing and the numbers keep increasing. So I want the input from the committee on how we talk about that in this report. I think it's very important. It's sort of kind of towards Brian's point about you know, how deep do we get on these issues? But this is something that is at the fingertips of everybody right now when it comes to what people are talking about. Mike Hilly, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Dan. That's super important. And we've been working on this for the last month. I can get you some fairly specific data for overdoses in the county. I can tell you right now, it's either between 2 and 8 to 10 overdoses a day that are occurring. We'll cycle during the week, depending on the day. And there's been an average of 2 to 4 DOAs per week given across a month. So I'll be glad to share that with you. However, we also are working with the health department informatics team. They'll be putting up some more specific dashboards related to this that you can monitor on a daily basis, because they get deaths in the county that I don't necessarily know about if EMS didn't go on it. So that output will be pretty quick, Dan. And I'd be glad to email you some of my data I've got just from the EMS perspective.
Mike Hilly, if you can loop in Mike Parker and Jill Nixon on that. Stephen Gottlieb, go ahead, and then Jill, I'll get to you right after that.
Dan, for purposes of the report, I think it's fair to say that this committee has discussed a growing awareness that the Ann Deacon Center alone is not an adequate diversion response. We've discussed the growing problems of fentanyl. We've discussed the migration of even stronger drugs like xylazine into the jurisdiction. We've talked about expanding the range of treatment facilities, and the 23-hour facility got funding from the legislature. So we're blurring lines here, but these things have been discussed in the Legal and Justice Systems Subcommittee. They've been discussed in the Stakeholder Advisory Committee. They're being discussed in the implementation planning. So I think to flag how fast moving and changing and serious, as Mike Hilly said, all of these changes are, and the fact that we're a little bit behind the curve in our ability to respond effectively across time for people who are affected by these. I think all of that would be a fair section of the report. All of that's stuff that has been on the table in these committee discussions.
Agreed, Stephen. And then one other piece of information that we could consider is that the city of Bellingham created an ordinance that went into effect on April 25th that makes public consumption of drugs illegal. And so that will have some impact in terms of people being diverted into law enforcement assisted diversion, community court, other resources. So I just want the committee to consider that. Jill Nixon, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask all of you if you have content that you want to include into the report. I at this point, the deadline that we've set for people to submit that kind of content, I'm gonna say the end of next week, May 26th, and then it can go before the steering committee and they can do final approvals for adding that content. But I don't have access to a lot of the information that you guys are talking about, so I don't know that I would adequately be able to do justice to some of these issues that these issues need. So, you know, absolutely just send me an email with a short paragraph, getting your point across for the report that you think it's important to include, and I'll do my best to get it in the report. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me or give me a call, and yeah, let's do it that way. But just mark next Friday on your calendars for getting me a short narrative to include in the report.
Thanks, Jill. So I heard from at least Mike and Brian in terms of wanting to add content. So please loop myself and Mike Parker in on that content so we can take a look at it. Anything else for the annual report we want to discuss today? We're kind of running out of time here.
I have my hand up.
I'm sorry, Courtney. I can't see you, but go ahead.
Oh, my bad. It's probably because I have my silly video off. I just wanted to, again, circle back to what Mike was saying. And we know crisis stabilization isn't enough, but also the housing options we have in this county are not enough. We can't lose sight of the fact that Lighthouse Mission is the only emergency shelter we have right now. And there are a lot of folks that do not feel safe going there, and they are not met with evidence-based treatment on the whole with the problems that we're talking about. And these number of ODs are increasing as inequality and housing insecurity is increasing in this county, and we can't lose sight of that.
Courtney, how do you propose we discuss that within the annual report? Are you saying that we should have a section on housing?
I think we should. We can't talk about mental health and SUD without talking about housing, person and environment, and understanding what people need to survive and meet their basic needs.
Okay.
And right now, this county does not. In trying to approach these issues holistically, we have to talk about what's available for folks and why they are outside with nowhere to go and overdosing. Those numbers are increasing for reasons beyond what some perceive as choice to use. It is not a choice when you are living outside and withdrawing and trying to survive, and the systems in place are so siloed, you can't seek help when you're decompensated. So I guess I'm just saying we need to, I totally agree with Mike Hilly. We need more mental health and SUD facilities, more options for the agencies that exist. They're all waitlisted out. You know, we can only have so many connecting and bridging case management programs if they have nowhere to go after that. And so, I mean, this is, we need more of everything. And because that target is always moving, like we've been talking about, we have to keep all of the variables in sight, because Bellingham, Whatcom County is one of the most expensive counties to live in the state right now, if not the most. And we're going to continue seeing people who are already struggling. That struggle is going to continue as they try to meet their other basic needs. And it's nearly impossible for a lot of people right now to be stably housed and maintain their sobriety. and other factors, their mental health stability. And that's very difficult to do. And you only have St. Joseph CR, Lighthouse Mission, and crisis stabilization.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to find any disagreement from this committee on the urgency of safe, stable, affordable housing for all members of our community. You know, we've made investments, Bellingham's made investments, and the county now as well, over the last decade in terms of providing for affordable housing, but we are constantly playing catch up, and we don't have the capacity, unfortunately, for available housing for every person in this county. We're seeing that across the state, and we're seeing that mostly up and on the I-5 corridor as well. Courtney, are you willing to write something up for the report on housing?
I can. I mean, I can from within my role. I'm not with any of the housing programs right now, but I would be happy to put my thoughts together, and yeah, I can send that to you.
Okay, I'm wondering if you could maybe team up with Brian Thane from the Bellingham Housing Authority, and maybe just like a paragraph or two regarding the need and kind of an assessment looking forward.
Yeah, I think my role would probably be more of like from the perspective of the public defender's office, like what we're seeing happening with our clients. Because I'm not within those agencies, I can't speak to any of their data or what they have going on. I can only speak to what I'm hearing from community members, but I can reach out to him. Yep.
Okay.
Well, Dan, if I could suggest, you mentioned affordable housing. I think what Courtney's putting her finger on, and what we really are needing, is supportive housing, which is a slightly different animal, a tougher nut to crack and a more expensive nut to crack. So I would make that our emphasis. Courtney, I'd suggest you could wear the hat of a committee member, not the hat of a public defender office person. And you've been part of these conversations, and a good part of these conversations. And I would also suggest that Mike Parker would be a more knowledgeable resource for Courtney to work with than Brian, perhaps.
Yeah, Stephen, good call. Let's go ahead and go that route. Mike Parker has a different perspective and a more in-depth. So let's go that route. Courtney, if you can connect with Mike Parker and just get together with him regarding this.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I'm sure Opportunity Council's been, I know they've approached the conversation of needing another emergency shelter in town before. And with the recent decision in the paper about funding to Lighthouse Mission, I think it's a repeated conversation that comes up in this county about we need more options. We can't continue to put all of our eggs in one basket. So I'll reach out to Mike.
Okay, thank you for taking that on. Brian Estes, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, real quick, Jill, could you put the report in a Google Doc and give the whole committee edit rights? I mean, that might be an easiest way for you. Just, we can have all these suggested changes all in one place.
Unfortunately, that would be a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act. So
okay.
No. So
one-on-one, we will send them to you.
Okay, committee, other thoughts on the annual report? Okay, seeing none. Okay, then, so people have their assignments. They're going to get any changes over to Jill by the end of next week. Try to get those changes in before that, so we have time to go back and forth on edits. Anything else on this one? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to the next topic. We have about 6 minutes left. Here, the next item is scheduling a joint meeting with the Behavioral Health Advisory Committee, and this is for discussion. Jill, can you help us with this one?
yes, so there was a request made by members of this committee to have a joint meeting with the Behavioral Health Advisory Committee in the middle of the year, which is now. They meet quarterly, and their next meeting is July 10th. So if this is something the committee wants to do, then we'll need Perry's help to see if we can get that done and schedule the July meeting for this committee probably concurrent with Behavioral Health Advisory Committee, or do you want to have a special meeting?
Are they willing to meet with us during their regular meeting?
That's the conversation we need to have to find out what you guys want to do.
Hey, Jill, is there a time proposal?
No, I think the first question, Perry, is that something the advisory committee would be willing to do, is to meet jointly with us?
Boy, I'm not certain exactly how to answer that, Jill.
Wendy Jones is on the call. She's on that committee. Maybe she could chime in. She's an attendee. I don't know. Does she have permissions to?
She does. Go ahead, Wendy.
Okay, I'm sorry you caught me a little unaware. I don't know that anybody would object to it. We'd probably need to, hang on, we probably.
Wendy, you cut out. I wonder if you want to mute on accident.
I'm sorry, well, good, then I'll try to sound a little, more coherent. Anyway, as a representative, I can't imagine anybody would have a strong objection to it. I think everybody would appreciate it if there was an idea as to why folks wanted that combined meeting. If there was an agenda or a specific issue that wanted to be discussed. Especially once we're going into summertime, oftentimes people are taking advantage of the weather. So, and because I'm not familiar with why it was that this meeting was requested, can anybody give me an idea?
Committee. I mean, I'll tell you my personal desire here to have a joint meeting is this getting our arms around this fentanyl crisis that we're experiencing now. This keeps coming up over and over again in pretty much every conversation with the DOAs and the overdoses. So I think that's one thing that this committee, well, I personally, I think the rest of the committee would share that sentiment, is that we want to hear from your group what is going on with addressing this issue.
And Dan, I think that would be fine. Certainly it's an issue that everybody's aware of on the Behavioral Health Committee. And so talking about it is going to be if it's going to be targeted to talking about the fentanyl issue, I would suggest that either this committee or the other committee see about reaching out to the head of the emergency department up at St. Joe's. The jail has a quarterly medical meeting, and that happened earlier this month. And one of the things that was when we first became aware that this new form of fentanyl that has the additional drug that's being mixed in with it, which is an animal tranquilizer, is starting to show up. And they're seeing it in the emergency department. We haven't seen it in the jail yet, not at least as far as we know. But certainly that would be one of the targets that would probably be of interest to both groups.
Okay, committee, any disagreement with that?
No, Dan, one of the things that I can do is we certainly, of course, have the distribution list for the Behavioral Health Advisory Committee, and I'm certainly willing to communicate that there's interest as far as the IPRTF subcommittee, communicating in terms of scheduling a meeting. Again, the next, as Wendy had made reference, the next BHAC meeting that is scheduled is in July. And so I'm not opposed to inviting the Behavioral Health IPRTF. That would probably be the bulk of that Behavioral Health Advisory Committee meeting at that point, I suspect. And I do also agree with Wendy that it's like maybe fleshing out a little bit of the specific intent and interest. The other thing that I will say is we do have Wendy's been with this committee, I think, longer than I've been around, but she is one of there's a couple of other committee members that have been there for an extended period of time, and we have a number of new committee members. So, just in terms of getting to the topic and what's been done. I mean, we have obviously the minutes and history of the BHAC meetings, and relative to this very specific topic, very little has occurred with the BHAC committee relative to overdoses and response to overdoses and et cetera. So I just offer that, other than saying we should, we shouldn't. I'm certainly willing to support that process.
Okay. And then the July 10th meeting, is that something that we can try to get on their agenda?
Yes, the July meeting is already scheduled in terms of the time frame and so forth, and certainly I can add to that agenda item. We haven't created the agenda at this point, but I'd be more than happy to add the behavioral, IPRTF subcommittee attending, that meeting, if that's what you're making reference to.
Yeah, any objections from the committee on that? Okay, seeing
Well,
none.
excuse
Go
me,
ahead.
Dan, my question then would be, is a quorum of this committee going to attend that committee? Like, do I need to notice it as a special behavioral health committee? I don't know if you have your calendars in front of you or not, and can let me know if you can attend that meeting. That would be helpful.
The meeting
Can we
occurs.
notice it to be on the safe side?
Pardon me?
Can we just notice it to be on the safe side?
Possibly.
Okay. I mean, I just assume that we'll likely have a quorum of this group here at that meeting.
That meeting occurs, and sorry, it's already been referenced, but 3 o'clock to 4:30 on July 10th.
Okay. All right, we are past time. We need to be moving along here. We have an agenda item for the June joint meeting with the Legal and Justice Systems Committee. We don't have another meeting before that, do we, Jill?
No, we do not. And the committee, the Legal and Justice Committee has scheduled one item. Let me pull it up. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me right yet. For that meeting. They are scheduling juvenile detention and behavioral health services on that agenda. They are going to invite in representatives from juvenile detention in court, the CQ unit at the hospital. But that's the only item I have for that agenda, for that joint meeting.
Committee members, do we have other agenda items that we want to discuss in concert with the Legal and Justice Systems Committee?
It seems like the outcome of the special session would be, maybe that's a little too far down the road, but just impacts of the special session and the decisions that are made leaps to mind.
Okay, I mean, I think it's timely to do that. Any objections to that, adding that as an item? Okay, let's go ahead and add that in there. Thanks, Perry, for that one. So we'll have two items to talk about. I think I'd like to meet with my co-chair offline and see if he has any ideas regarding agenda items, and then Jill, I can get back to you and then add that anything that we come up with. Does that please the committee? Is that all right? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, well, hey, we're way over time. Well, not way, we're like 4 minutes over. We have a couple of guests. Wendy, you're one of them here in attendance. I want to make sure we have time for public comment. Jill, do you want to see if people want to talk?
Yeah, I don't believe we have any attendees either in person or online. Jenna is my coworker in the council office. You'll be seeing her pop up from time to time.
Okay.
But other than that, we don't have any other folks.
Okay, sounds good. Any other business before the committee today? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and adjourn us. Thanks for coming. Thanks for staying a little bit late today. Have a good rest of your day.